Well, joining us to talk about this, talk about Tuesday's launch and China's future role in space is Stephen Clark, editor of Spaceflight Now. Stephen, how big of a deal, how big of an achievement is today's launch for China and its space program?
Well, today's launch was kind of a turning point for the life of the Tiangong space station. This is the final mission of the construction phase of the Chinese space station, and the 3 astronauts that went into orbit today and are approaching the space station for docking in a couple of hours' time will be joining 3 other astronauts already living on the space station. So actually, in a first, it'll be the first time that 6 Chinese astronauts will be on the Chinese space station on the Tiangong all at one time. The 3 that are up there now will be coming home in about 5 or so days, and the 3 that just launched today will be up there until May, doing the final outfitting and configuration of the space station. They'll perform 3 or 4 spacewalks.
You're going all over the place. Let me stop you there. First of all, talk about how unprecedented is it to have 6 of them for this handover at the same time. What is the setup up there? How much space do they really have?
Well, the space station has 3 modules, so it's like a 3-bedroom house essentially. So they have 6 people. Each of them will have a sleeping compartment for this 5-day handover period. But again, 3 of them will be going home in a week's time. So it's kind of like a camping trip for a few days, and then the 3 people who launched today will be up there on their own for 6 months.
Okay, now let's focus on the experiments. Talk about what they will be doing during their time up there for the next 6 months.
Well, as I was saying, it's really about readying and preparing the space station for operations, because the space station is going to be up there for a decade or longer performing experiments and research for scientists around the world. But to do that and to get that into an operational status, the 3 astronauts who just launched today will be going outside the space station for 3 or 4 spacewalks to work on the robotic arm, to do some other configuration that needs to be done to fully operationalize, so to speak, the space station. And then once this expedition is complete in May, the space station can be declared fully operational.
And what do you, will they bring these experiments back on Earth, I'm assuming?
Well, a lot of the experiments on the Chinese space station will be done in situ on board the space station, and they'll be downlinking the results back to scientists on the ground, because China, as of yet, doesn't have the capability to return a large amount of cargo to Earth. I think they're going to be working on that over the next few years. But for now, a lot of it is just being done by the experiments will be done and executed, excuse me, by the astronauts on the station, and they'll downlink the results back to Earth.
Understood. As you know, China has had a number of successful missions in space, landing a spacecraft on the far side of the moon in 2019, a rover on Mars last year, making it really the only second country in the world after the US to land a spacecraft successfully on the red planet. What does it say about the country's growing capability in space, Stephen?
I think one thing to note is that China has accomplished all of this really on its own, because the United States is not cooperating with Chinese space program right now. So China on its own, using its own internal capability, has built and launched a 100-ton space station. They've landed on the far side of the moon, as you've mentioned, and they're looking at going to the moon with astronauts potentially by 2030. So it is an impressive plan, an impressive cadence of missions that China is planning over the coming decade.
All right, we'll leave it there. Stephen, thank you very much.